Okay, so just as the introduction have indicated, today we'll be discussing conducting a bibliometric literature review for research writing. I'll try as much as possible to be um, quick with this session today so that we can take a number of questions at the end of the presentation. So um, my name is Dr. Paulu Akinadewa, as stated. I'm from the University of the Free States. I will not dwell much on this introduction as we had a discussion about them 2 weeks ago when we had the first session on systematic literature review. So for today's session, our discussion would focus majorly on the outline as indicated here. So we start with the genesis of bibliometrics, then we move on to discuss what is bibliometrics, the uses of bibliometric review, the various limitations of bibliometric review. Then we have a food for thought before going into the practical session where we show how to conduct bibliometric review using the software named VOS Viewer. Then we wrap it up with a conclusion after the practical session, and then we go into taking questions. As a form of acknowledgement, I acknowledge that this particular presentation was prepared with the help of many books, presentation, and websites, as well as contributions from professors and experts in the body of knowledge. So this particular presentation is not necessarily 100% my own personal knowledge, and I do not take credit for all the contents. So if I've seen further, as I mentioned in the last presentation, it's because I've had the opportunity of standing on the shoulders of giants, just as Isaac Newton mentioned. So moving on to the discussion of today, we'll look at the genesis of bibliometrics. The first record of the word bibliometric was proposed by Alan Pritchard in 1969, and he mentioned specifically that there was something that prompted that particular word bibliometric to be put to use, which was based on statistical bibliometric as proposed by Hume in 1923. So what's this statistical bibliometric bibliography about originally? It refers to the use of statistical methods and analysis to study the bibliographic characteristics of texts, documents, or sets of documents. So it's like a subfield within the broader domain of bibliometrics, and it is concerned with adopting quantitative analysis of written publications such as books, articles, and other scholarly works. So according to Hume, the purpose of statistical bibliography is basically to shed light on the processes of written communication, what has been published, what were the process adopted in putting them to place, the nature and also the course development of a particular discipline, as well as a means of counting and analyzing the various phases of that particular written communication. So based on this, we then have what we call bibliometric and also scientometric. These two words were coined by Alan Pritchard and also Nalimov Moichenko in 1969. And till date, we still use those words interchangeably, although they do not necessarily mean the same thing because the aspects they focus on differentiates them specifically. However, both words looks at adopting quantitative analysis into what has been published already in the body of knowledge. So then the question is, what is bibliometric? What is it about? What does it look at? By definition, I then say bibliometric is the statistical analysis of bibliographic data, which focuses commonly on the citation analysis. We want to look at the citations attached to a particular publication, or we want to look at the citations attached to publications within a particular field of research outputs. It could be publications such as books, articles, conference proceedings, and other research published items. So in essence, the focus, as mentioned earlier, is the citations. We want to see how many times this particular research output and publications have been cited. It could be for a single article, or it could be for different articles within a particular journal, or it could be based on publications within a particular domain or a field of study. As long as we're using the citations to make informed decision or to look at the trends of what is happening in that particular area, we refer to that particular approach as bibliometric. And it's very, very useful when we are conducting a review of literature. Reason being that it helps us to uncover the emerging trends in those articles. It gives us an idea of what people are saying in that particular field of knowledge or in that particular topic area. Then it also helps to uncover journal performance, the collaboration patterns, and the research constituents. So if you're looking at a particular journal outlet as an example, with the use of your bibliometric review, you are able to understand how many publications were made in that particular journal, how many citations do they have, who and who are collaborating to publish in this particular journal, where are they coming from, what was their affiliation, and all other various information that guides us to have an informed decision about that particular journal. So it also helps us to explore the intellectual structure of a specific domain. If you're looking at, say, for instance, information management. So conducting a bibliometric review gives you the opportunity to understand what people are looking at in terms of information management. What are the various approaches people are taking to carry out their research on information management through the use of bibliometric review. It also helps us to estimate published articles' comprehensiveness, that is, their strengths and weaknesses. What particular area have more focus? How many people are citing work in that particular area? How many people are looking at that particular research and publishing on that particular area? For instance, if we look at the body of knowledge currently, we'll notice that most of the publications are now coming out to look at artificial intelligence because that's what is in vogue and that's where people are focusing their research on. So a bibliometric review can help you understand which areas artificial intelligence research is focusing on currently. Might not necessarily be in your field, or it could be on a particular topic area. So we can say, for instance, what are the focus of research that is being carried out on the impact or the implementation or adoption of artificial intelligence in information management. That's what you will be able to get from conducting a bibliometric review. Then it also helps to identify the core sources, that is, which journals are specifically focusing on research in that particular subject area. It gives you an idea of where to then publish your own paper. If you want to understand, okay, which journal are people citing more also in terms of this particular study or subject area, this is what bibliometric review will assist researchers in achieving. Conference proceedings also, which particular conference is focusing on this topic area, so that you have a knowledge of where to publish your own paper also, which particular journal or which particular conference gets more citations in terms of what you're looking at. This gives you informed decision on how to then proceed with your own research. Then it also gives the researcher an opportunity to study obsolescence and dispersion of scientific literature. Which area are people ignoring now, or which area were research conducted on within the last 10 years, but are no longer being focused on? currently in the body of knowledge. This is also something you can get from conducting a bibliometric review. Also, it helps to study the productivity of institutions, individuals, and disciplines because you are able to then see their citation score, the institutions that are affiliated with a particular research. So, for instance, you're able to see articles on artificial intelligence is coming majorly from this particular research center, or it's coming from this particular researcher. So he has more publications on this area, or he has more citations on this particular research area. All of this information comes from conducting a bibliometric review. It also helps you in identifying areas of research strength and weaknesses, which you can then focus your research on that particular area. So if you want to have a niche for yourself. You look at what are people publishing about, what are they leaving out, what's the significance of that aspect they are leaving out. Maybe you can venture into that particular aspect and then create information about that particular area in the body of knowledge. It also helps to identify the core sources. I've mentioned that already. Also, look at developing norms for standardization as an example. So if you're going to create a particular policy about a particular research area, the bibliometric review will give you the opportunity to create knowledge in that particular section or in that particular topic area, because you now get an understanding of how people have worked on that particular field, what they have said, the approach they have taken, and how they've been able to achieve results in that particular field to then inform you on generalizing or making a standard or a specification out of that particular research area. And also it helps to demonstrate the importance and impact of your own research or your research group. For instance, you want to say, okay, how many publications have I done in the last 5 years? You download your publications and then start to do some quantitative analysis on those publications. How many citations does each of these publications have currently? What's the trend of the citations on these publications? Year one, I only have 4 citations to that paper, but in year two, I now have 15 more citations. So gradually, you then see the trend to see how well you're doing, or how well the research group you belong to is doing, or how well the institution you belong to is doing in terms of research. So there are no limitations to how to look at this particular perspective, but the bibliometric review gives you an opportunity to look at all of this. Then it also helps you to identify the users of different subject areas that are being published about in the body of knowledge, identify the authorship and the trends in documents of various subjects. It also helps to forecast the past, the present, and the future publishing trends so that you can situate your own research in something that will speak to future research area. You are not just focusing on what is no longer in vogue in the industry you find yourself, or you are not just dwelling on what is present, because there is still something to come in the future that can make what you are focusing on currently obsolete. So this is one of the advantages or the uses of bibliometric review. Also, to identify core periodicals in different disciplines, which particular area or which particular outlet should I make my publication in. And lastly, it helps you to predict the productivity of publishers, individual authors, organizations, and also countries, depending on the field of study that we're looking at and the particular research area that the author or the researcher wants to focus on. However, despite the fact that we have these various uses, various importance and popularity of this bibliometric review, there are some limitations that are attached to it also. So we need to have this at the back of our mind also, because it helps us as a researcher to understand what we are doing and how we can manage our research to not dwell on those limitations and be able to navigate these particular limitations in our research area. So the first limitation we'll talk about is the citation patterns vary from subject to subject. So just because someone has done a publication in a field and for the last 5 years, that particular publication is only having 10 citations, does not necessarily mean that publication is not having an impact in that field of study. It might just be the way research is structured in that particular body of knowledge. So if I'm working in, say, for instance, on COVID-19 in 2021, there's a possibility of my publication having more citations than someone who is doing a research on COVID-19 back in 2016. Yes, there are various strains of COVID-19, but because I am doing that research just after the outbreak of COVID-19, gives it more chance of people looking at what has happened, how did we get here, and what are the solutions we are proposing, which can then give that particular publication more citation. That does not necessarily mean my publication in 2021 has more impact or is of higher quality than the publication that was done in 2016, just because it has more citations. So we must keep that at the back of our mind, that just because we have more citations on a particular publication does not give it more credibility than the others. Then also, only a tiny proportion of published research is covered by resources. Some databases do not have enough publication on that particular research area you are carrying out. So if you have adopted a particular database that has limited publications on that field, and you want to make a global conclusion to say there are few publications in this particular field, that would be misrepresenting that particular research area, because the database you have adopted does not necessarily have enough information about that particular field. So you must be very, very careful when you're choosing the database to adopt for your bibliometric research or bibliometric review. Then also, self-citation can distort the metrics. So someone can have a publication done in 2022, and currently that publication has about 1,000 citations. But if you examine that publication critically, you might find out that that person has done about 15 publications after that particular first publication, and they have cited the first publication in their subsequent 15 publications without necessarily making a contribution to that 15 new publications. So self-citation can create an illusion and make researchers assume that this publication has much citation under a short period of time, not knowing that it's self-citation by those individuals, by those authors that has gotten that particular citation to that number. So it can then distort the way we present our findings from that particular study, because we did not factor in the self-citation metrics for those publications. So it's very, very important to look at that perspective when we are doing our bibliometric review. Then also, review articles tends to be more highly cited than standard articles. Reason being that people have the opinion that if you have done a review article, you have combined the knowledge from various authors to bring into your own research. And as such, it's easier to get more information in your review article than a standard article where you have empirical data, because your empirical data would be the major focus of your standard article. So in that case, if you're going to conduct a bibliometric review, you might have more citations coming from review articles, and that must be factored into your discussion of findings about the bibliometric review output. You must not overlook that to just say this is the publication that is mostly cited without looking at the reason behind why that particular publication has that number of citations. Then also citations to a paper may not reflect its quality. I've mentioned that earlier. It could just be because that particular area is what is invoked in that particular point in time, or it could be because there's been self-citations. It could be because of the subject area that that particular publication was done on. There's this article that was done by some authors, I think in 2019, about the 114 definitions of circular economy. Now, because it's a review article looking at the various definitions. Imagine 114 different definitions that authors have given to circular economy. So you carrying out a research in circular economy would want to lay your hand on that particular publication to have an idea what other people have said about circular economy. And automatically that makes that particular publication get more citation than a standard article. So yes, it could be a reflection of the quality of the paper, and sometimes it might not necessarily give you the quality standard of that particular publication. So we must not be biased towards publications that have higher citations and leaving the ones with lower citations to include in our review. Then lastly, metrics do not tend to account for the age of a researcher. So a research could have been done 20 years back and still have fewer citations compared to a particular publication that was done just last year. And just because that publication has been in the body of knowledge for 20 years with no citation would not necessarily give you an idea of who was behind that particular research. It could be someone who is more knowledgeable in that field, who has more experience in that field. So the publication citations, the metrics would not necessarily give you an insight into the experience of the person who had made that particular publication. So at every point in time when you're doing a bibliometric review, we must have this at the back of our mind. So in summary, your bibliometric review will help you to summarize large quantities of bibliometric data to present the state of the intellectual structure and emerging trends of a particular research topic or a research field. That's the basic aim of conducting a bibliometric review. And it is used when the scope of review is broad. You have a large data set to analyze, which you cannot manually review using your systematic review approach. Hence, you are adopting a bibliometric review techniques such that you can conduct some quantitative analysis and have an understanding of how or what the research in that particular field is all about. So usually the data required would be large bibliographic data. I would not box us to a particular number here, but the moment you have a number of publications that you cannot manually review and do a systematic review on all of them, then there would be a need for you to adopt a bibliometric review instead. So usually the analysis approach would be quantitative in nature, which involves conducting some analysis and evaluation. It could be to be represented in graphs, in tables, in charts, different approaches. And also you have the qualitative aspects where you then need to interpret what you are finding out from those quantitative research or quantitative analysis that has been carried out. So usually your bibliometric review will combine both approaches to be able to give insights into what is happening within that particular research field or research area. So food for thought now. Looking at your bibliometric review, the best practice or the best approach to having something tangible that can be published in the body of knowledge that will make a contribution to the body of knowledge is to do a fusion of both systematic and bibliometric review. That way, you are able to have in-depth understanding of what is happening in that field and also have information based on a large data set of publications within that particular research area. So your systematic review will help you set the basis for the research. It will help you to identify the knowledge gaps, identify the theories and models and frameworks that support that particular research, and also help you to develop your theoretical and conceptual framework that you need for your publication or for your research. However, the bibliometric review will help you to confirm the importance of the research you want to carry out, identify the reputable works, how many publications were done in this field, which of those publications have higher citations, which of those publications have more collaborations incorporated into it, which you can then use to justify the research as well as the findings of your research. And eventually, it strengthens the gap that you have in the body of knowledge. You are able to identify the gap through the systematic review, but with your bibliometric, you then have the opportunity to provide answers to those identified gap and be able to say, this is why this particular gap is existing. Because people have done research in area A, B, C, but we are leaving out the D part. Maybe because there are no enough information or there are no expertise in that particular area, and then you can make a case for that particular gap in the body of knowledge. So in essence, these are the major approaches and the best way to say you want to conduct a literature review. Have the systematic review approach and then confirm with the bibliometric review as long as you have enough data that you can subject to quantitative analysis using the different softwares that are available for um, conducting your bibliometric review. So that then takes us to a practical session of how to do your bibliometric review. So we have different softwares that are available that you can adopt for conducting your bibliometric review. For instance, we have the Biblioshini. It's a more recent software that people have been adopting now. Prior to that, we used to have what we call the site space. I think it's one of the pioneer software that people use tangibly for the various databases that are available for publications in the body of knowledge. But for this particular session, we'll be looking at the Vox Viewer. So the Vox Viewer is similar to those two previous ones. And I think all of them are available free of charge in the internet. You just need to know how to maneuver or make use of them. Then also the different databases that you can adopt each of them for differs. And also, I think some of them allows you to combine different databases into your quantitative analysis. So, but for this particular one, we'll be focusing majorly on the Vox Viewer, which is developed by Neil Jan van Herk and Ludo Waltman, and it's available for free through this particular link. I will post that link on the chat box at the end of this particular session, but you can also copy it like that. It's just a www.voxviewer.com/download, and you'll be able to download it for both your Mac and also your Windows, and for Linux operating systems as well. So basically, these software tools are used for visualizing the various networks that are obtainable from the bibliographic information we have for all the various publications. What the softwares have also is that they have built-in support for popular bibliographic databases like your Web of Science, Elsevier, Science Direct, Web of Science, Scopus, PubMed, HiHe, and the likes. So they have a built-in approach for conducting the various analysis depending on the database you have adopted for carrying out your research. Then they also have the text mining functionality to read the content of what you are feeding into that particular software and be able to extract and give you visualized networks or maps based on those information. Then the layout and the clustering techniques differ. So that will inform you on which one you intend to adopt for your bibliometric review. Also, they have advanced visualization features such as a smart labeling algorithm, overlay visualizations, density visualizations such as the heat map to indicate which focus or which particular area the publications focusing on, which authors are doing the particular type of research in this particular area and all of that. So all of this, the basic tools that you get from this any of these softwares that I've mentioned, but specifically what you can obtain from each of these software is the citation network of publications or journals or authors or organizations or countries. You can also see the co-authorship network, the co-citation network, the bibliographic coupling network, as well as the co-occurrence network of keywords. So at least you have 5 major aspects that you can achieve from content you obtain from any of those bibliographic database, as long as you're using this particular box viewer software. And what are the basic terminologies that you need to familiarize yourself with when you're using this software? The first one is items, which is a representation of the objects of interest, which would be, in this case, maybe the publications or the researchers, that is the authors, or the keywords or terms. So in this particular software, this is represented by the terminology items. And a map normally includes only one type of item at a particular point in time. Then the next terminology is the links, which is a connection or a relation between two items. Remember, we said our items could be publications, the authors or researchers, or keywords. So the links between any of these will show you the relationship that exists between them. And each of these links has a particular strength represented by a positive numerical value. So the strength will show you how related each of those terms are. Then the higher this value, the stronger the link that exists between the two or more items. Then also we have what we call the network, which is a set of items now. So it's not just one or two items. You have different items that are linked together to form a network. So usually these different links coming together to bring different items into a particular pattern. And lastly, we also have what we call the cluster, which is a set of items included in a particular map. And usually they are non-overlapping. So this cluster gives you an idea of what specific area of focus of research is about, or which specific group of authors are publishing in this particular field, or which particular type of keywords are coming together to form a particular research area. All of these are terminologies that you get familiar with when you use this particular software. So for a given item, the links and the total link strength attributes are the numbers of links of an item with other items. I've mentioned that earlier. The links and the total link strength will give you an idea how related the different items in that particular network is, how many links are existing between those keywords, for example, or how many links exist between those 3 or 4 authors. So for example, in case of a co-authorship links between researchers, the link attributes indicates the number of co-authorship links of a given researcher with other researchers. So if the link strength shows, say, for instance, 5 between author A and B, and then there's a link showing a strength of 7 between author A and C, that indicates to you that author A and C have done more research together on that particular field compared to author A and B. Or it could be that the publication done by author A and C out of their collaboration have more citations compared to the publication done by author A and B. So the link strength will give you an idea of the relationship that exists among the different items. Remember, the items could be the publication, it could be the authors, it could be the keywords, depending on what you're looking at specifically. So when you want to conduct your bibliometric review, first thing you need to keep at the back of your mind is the software is not going to write the review for you. The software is just going to show you the different links or the different maps that exist among them. You will still have to do the review yourself. You need to do the interpretation and do the notes for that particular research you're carrying out. Then also you need to have a clear aim and achievable objective set. This will guide you in what you want to achieve for that particular study. So if your aim and objectives are not set clearly or they are not achievable, then you will not be able to get something tangible out of your Vox Viewer software that you want to put to use. So it's very, very important to decide if a bibliometric review is necessary for the research you want to conduct or not. If it's not going to be useful because you're not looking at the trends or you're not looking at the patterns that exist among the different publications, there would necessarily be no need for you to do a bibliometric review. Rather, you can just focus on a systematic review. So you need to make all of these decisions and then clearly define the search keywords that would help you to achieve the aim and the objectives of that particular study. If you get the keywords wrongly, you will not get the right bibliographic information from any of the databases that you are going to adopt for that particular study. So getting the right keywords is a very, very important step towards achieving the aims and the objective that you are setting for that particular study. Then you must be ready to be critical in your interpretation of the data. You must take away your emotions because you have a preset mind towards what the publications in that particular field will be. It might not necessarily be what you will get based on the information you will be extracting from the bibliographic data in those databases, depending on what the research is all about. So for instance, you might want to carry out a research trend on artificial intelligence in, say, the field of engineering, and you already have in your mind, because artificial intelligence is what is trending now, there would be maybe 50,000 articles on that field. But eventually, when you go to the database to search, you find out that the keywords or the indexes that were done on those different databases does not necessarily include artificial intelligence, and as such, you have less publications within that particular field. So please, when you're carrying out a bibliometric review, you have to be very, very critical, open-minded in doing the interpretation of the data. So the various steps that involves, the first thing to do is outline your research details, determine the topic you want to look at, define that particular topic, think about the scope of your research. What will it be limited to? Which specific area are you going to be looking at? What particular range of publications do you want to take? Are you going to look at publications from 1960, or you just want to look at publications within the last 10 years, within the last 20, 30 years, depending on the research you're going to be conducting? So that's why it's very, very important to determine the research area you want to look at. You define the topic and then look at the scope for that study. Then also think about the outcomes. What could possibly be the case if I'm limiting this research to the last 5 years? Will I be able to get more publications for that particular period? What would be the outcome if I make it bigger and maybe go for 10 years or go for 20 years or 15 years? What would be the justification for choosing that particular timeline? So that would assist you in determining how to carry out the research. Then also think about the management. How are you going to make use of the information you get from the database? If you're getting about 400 publications, will you be able to manage your discussion based on those 400 publications? Or will you want to work with something smaller and more recent? So all of this information would assist you in determining how the research will be structured. Then you plan the sources to be searched. Which database will have more information to use for your bibliometric review? Are you going to be using Scopus? What's the justification behind that particular idea? Or will Web of Science be more useful because I'm carrying out a research in this field? Or will it be PubMed because I'm carrying out something in that particular field and PubMed will be more suitable to have publications in that field? So all of these things will inform your decision on the source to be used. Also, you need to map out the research aim and objectives. For instance, you can say you want to look at smart city development as a research area you want to carry out your research on. So in that case, that becomes the topic you're looking at. And then the objectives would then possibly be to identify the countries and authors with the highest focus on smart city development in the last 10 years. So I've identified a particular scope now for my study within the last 10 years, the countries and the authors that are writing or doing publications on smart city development. Also, then I say identify the most cited published works and sources on smart city development in the last 10 years. Also, we can say map out the research focus on smart city development in the last 10 years. What are people talking about? What are the trends? Then identify the research trends in smart city development. All of this then gives me an idea of what I want to do with this particular study. And then I'm able to start deciding which database will give me information about smart city development, which then takes us to our step 2. So for this particular approach, I've decided I'll be using the Scopus database. Reason being that I believe, or it's been established also, that Scopus database have more information on the engineering field of study. So I would believe that most publications talking about smart city development would be found on the Scopus database. So what I then need to do is go to scopus.com, search using the keywords. Remember, I mentioned earlier that your keyword search would assist you in getting the right information that we will be able to adopt for your study. So if you don't get the keywords right, you may not be able to get accurate information. So for instance, you see here, the keyword strings I'm using is smart city development. Then I figured out that some people would be publishing using the keyword smart cities and not just smart city. So in this case, I'm including both options. And you can see they are put in parentheses with a combination, or we call it the logical operator, in this case, or. So I'm using the word or to say that any publication that has smart city development or smart cities development in the article title or in the abstract or in the keywords would form part of the articles I am using for this particular study. Then I also indicate the timeline from 2015 to 2024. That's in the last 10 years. Some people would say we are in 2025 already and you have publications in 2025. So why not include them also? The challenge with that approach is you might not be able to make full informed decision, because 2025 is still midway through. We are currently in August. We are ending August very soon. So yes, there would be publications already on Smart City, but I would need to make a justification for why I'm including 2025. And I would also have to explain the reason why the numbers we get for 2025 currently is not a representative of the whole of 2025. It's only up until this particular date that I am assessing that particular database. So that's part of what you need to indicate in whatever research you are focusing on. And once you've indicated that, remember we said for the last 10 years, so we'll say 2015 to 2024 as an example, then I click on the search button. Just to give an insight more on the search command, it's always very, very important to use logical operators. Here, you type in the specific words, the phrases, or operators you are looking for in the text search box. How do you do that? There are different approaches. You can say, for instance, you want to search for remote. If you do that in the search string, automatically what you expect is that documents containing the word remote would become what the database will bring out for you. However, if you type your keyword as remote access, what the search string will do, remember there is no parentheses here, the search engine will give you documents containing both remote and access. So it's not going to search for remote alone. If there is no access in the content, it will not include it in the search outcome. Also, if you then say remote access and put it in parentheses, what the search engine will do is it will make sure that these two words exist together as a phrase in every document that it will be giving you as the output for your search. So you must be very, very careful to understand where to use them. If you say remote access with no parentheses, it will search through the whole sentence. If you can pick remote as maybe the fourth word in that sentence, and access is the last word in the sentence, not necessarily having them together as remote access, automatically it includes that document in your search result. But the moment you put them together, it would make sure that the parentheses, the phrase of remote access must be present, either in the title of the article, in the abstract of the article, or in the keywords of that article for it to include it in the results. So single word searches are usually self-explanatory, like the remote option. Automatically, it's a word that can stand on its own, and it's easier for the database to just search through and give you results for that. But the moment you have multiple words, you need to be careful on how you then link them with the logical operators. So you have options like and, which means every time it sees both words together, that's when it will give you a result about it. But if you have or, it means it could either see the first one or the second one and still give you results. So it's not necessary that both words must exist. For instance, if you're searching truck or lorry, it means at any point in time it sees documents that has truck, it will add it to the results. If it's lorry that it is finding in the title or the abstract or the keywords, it will include that document also. But if you're using the and operator, it means both words, the truck and lorry, must exist in either the title, the abstract, or the keywords for that article for the search engine to include that particular word in the search result. Then also you have the not, which means it must ignore whatever you're saying after. So at any point in time, when it's searching and say, for instance, you say not alone, the moment it sees the word alone, it ignores it. It does not include it in what is going to present to you at the output. Then you can use this plus sign also to add an additional information to your keyword search. So the moment you say plus its current position, it means when it's searching for, say, Opeoluwa as an example, and there is no indication of my current position in that sentence or in that title or in the abstract, it must not include that particular article in the search result. You have other options like the asterisk, which is more or less like a white card, so that anytime it's searching for, say, for instance, WOR, and you put an asterisk after it, it means anytime there's a word starting with WOR and then containing any other letters, that particular search document must be included in the results. You also have the quotes, which means it must then bring out the exact phrase. We've explained that earlier. Then if you have the W/X, it means the word must be in proximity. So if you say the X would then be a particular number. So if you say hospital W/10 examination, it means at every point in time it sees hospital in a sentence, and then it counts the next 10 words after hospital. If examination is occurring, then it must include that particular search, that particular document in the search results. So you need to understand the logic behind the phrases or the content you put for your search string, so that you get the accurate information to include in your bibliometric review analysis. So once you've done that, you can see using that particular string that I explained earlier, smart city development or smart cities development. It means any article that has the word smart city development together as a phrase, it must be included, not necessarily in the article title now. It could be in the abstract or it could be in the keyword, because with this particular search, we can see the results came out with 1,471 documents specifically, but not necessarily in the title, because if you look at the first document here, the title does not have anything about smart city development. So possibly smart city development or smart cities development could be found in the abstract of this article, or it could be found in the keywords for that particular article. And that is why this particular article is listed as one of the results. Then remember, we've indicated a particular timeline. So we said from 2015 up until 2024. And that's why we are getting this number. If we are taking away that range, possibly you'll be sitting at maybe 3,000 documents whatsoever. It could be more than that, it could be less than that. But because we've defined a range, that's why we have this particular number for the outcome at this point. So we need to keep at the back of our mind what we've indicated, that's the range. And then based on what you have at this point, you can refine your search by looking at maybe the subject area, because what Scopus will do is it will search far and wide within the database and give you all the possible results from different fields of knowledge, different types of publication, different languages, whatever, as long as that particular phrase exists, smart city development or smart cities development, it would always include it in that particular result. So it's at your discretion to then select the subject area you want to focus on, the source type, the language. There are various options like we see here. So you have the subject area to limit it to, you have document type, the source title, publication stage, the keywords, affiliation of authors. You can always use any of this to limit the content to what speaks to your own field or the area you are carrying out that particular research on. So once you've selected that, you see the option to limit, and it then goes further to limit your results to that particular selection, which then refines the result for you. So I've done something like that now by limiting the research findings to just engineering field. And you notice we have less documents now. It's now 445 documents, which means I've also limited it to journals and articles only. I'm sorry, journals and conference proceedings only. And that's why I'm sitting with this particular number, but it's still within that 2015 to 2024. So once I've done the refinement, the next thing would be to then download the file. How do you do that? You click on all, because you need to select all the publications. Then you click on this button, export. So once you click on export, it then brings out this menu for you. You select the CSV file type. Once you select the CSV file type, it takes you to a screen like this, where you then select this button also to highlight all of that, select this button to include all of this information. The funding details also, you include that, and other necessary information about the publications. So the moment you select all of that, you then click export to allow the Scopus database to download that particular findings. That's the 445 documents information for you on your computer. So that takes us to the end of your responsibility or your activities on the database. This is similar to other databases also. Web of Science, if you're doing your search using Web of Science, you also adopt the same approach. You use the same string using the different logical operators as well to search for the documents, and then you export once you are satisfied with the refinements you have done. So the next step would then be to download the software if you don't have it yet on your computer. Once again, you can take that link for download, or you can just search it online, also Vox Viewer, and it will give you the option to download the software. Once you have done the download, you open the file. Sometimes if you don't have Java installed on your computer yet, it will request that you download the Java. And usually it will give you the link to download Java directly to the computer. But if you're not getting that, here's a link also to download Java to your computer. And once you have that done, you are ready to start the bibliometric review process. So this is what the interface for Vox Viewer looks like specifically. So the first thing to do when you open the software is you click on the create button. I think let me just open the Vox Viewer also on my system so that we'll see what it looks like. I've done a screenshot for this particular presentation, but I can also just open so that we see the software raw on my computer. But once you have the software opened, the first button you click is the create button. So when you click on the create button, then it brings out this dialog box. So looking at this dialog box, you then select the option create a map based on bibliographic data. So I believe you should be able to see my screen. This is the Vox Viewer software. This is what it looks like. So you can see this is what the software looks like. So you have the option to click on create, and then it brings out this menu, which you can then select the create a map, and then you follow through based on that. But I would use this presentation to explain in details. So the moment you click on create a map based on bibliographic data, the next step would be to click on next. So once you do that, it then takes you to the next screen where you choose the data source. So you say read data from bibliographic data files, and you can see the options of databases that are available. You can either get your data from Web of Science, Scopus, Dimensions, and PubMed, depending on where you have downloaded your files from. So you must make sure if it's from RIS or EndNote or RefWorks also, you select this option. Or if you have downloaded it from Crossref, Europe, PMC, and the likes, you use this particular option. But because we've downloaded our file from Scopus, so we're going to select this option and then we click on Next. Having done that, remember we used Scopus for this particular study. So you click on Scopus and then you come to these three dots to locate that file on your computer. Remember you downloaded the Scopus CSV file to your computer. So you need to locate where that particular file is downloaded to and select it using this option. Once you have selected it, then you click on Next. And then you start the actual research now, getting the extraction of the information. So remember the first objective we set was to identify the countries and the authors with the highest focus on smart city development in the last 10 years. So how do we achieve that? You see a screen like this, which means it will start with citations. What you then need to do is select countries. Remember, our objective is looking at countries and it's also looking at authors, but we start with the countries first. So what you do is we select citations and then you select the option for country. Once you've done that, you click on next. When you are done with the whole process for getting the result for country, you come back again, follow the same process, and then select authors, and then click on next. But for now, we'll focus on the countries. So you click on country, and you click on next. The moment you click on next, it then brings out this screen where you select the minimum number of documents for a country. This is totally at your discretion, but you must provide a justification. So depending on the number of documents you also have, you might not be able to do much at this stage in terms of determining the minimum number of documents for a country. So for instance, here you see that it says the minimum number of documents of a country when we set it at 2 documents per country, such that this software must only include publications that at least each country must have 2 publications from that particular country. So if the country does not have more than 1 publication, there's no point including it in this particular analysis. That's what we are simply saying by this particular option. Then having set that, you then look at the next one, which says minimum number of citations of a country also. So that's like 2 different options to use in selecting how you want to conduct the analysis. So here also, it's at your discretion to choose the number of citations you want each country to have before the country can be considered. So if you, depending on the type of research you're conducting and the field of study, you can set this as 10 or as 15 or as 20, but provide a justification for that. Say, maybe because it's a particular field that has a lot of publications, you do not want to have so many, you just want to say the top countries. Remember, the objective is majorly to identify the countries. So if you have the top 10 countries, you are fine and good to go. So, but based on this preset instruction, we said 2 documents minimum and then 10 citations minimum. It will show you underneath already to say of the 38 countries you have in your downloaded uh, document from Scopus database, 11 of them meets this particular threshold. So you can adjust this around and say maybe reduce the 10 to 5. You see again, it will tell you the number of countries that meets that particular threshold. You can increase the minimum number of documents to 5 and also see here the minimum number of countries that meets that particular requirement. So once you've set that, you click on next, and then it will show you the list of those countries here. At this point, you can extract this information. What you do to extract is you copy this to Notepad. There's a software on your computer by default. It's called the Notepad. The reason why we're exporting it to Notepad is because it makes it easier to then carry that particular information to your software like Excel, which makes it easier to arrange and then format that particular table as you want. So for you to extract this, what you need to do is right click on this particular section and then select the option that says export selected keywords. So once you've exported that, you go to Notepad, uh, the content that you have exported, you then take it to a Microsoft Excel where you are able to rearrange them accordingly. So if you want, you can arrange them based on their document number, or you can arrange them based on the citation number, depending on what you intend to achieve to indicate the top countries. So if you want to rank the top countries based on the number of documents they have published from that country, you arrange it in that particular order. If you want to arrange it based on the citations from each country, you can always do that using Microsoft Excel. Then also you can go to this website, mapchart.net/word HTML, to produce a map indicating the publications from each of these countries. You can also do that on Microsoft Excel anyway. So same way you create charts on Microsoft Excel, as long as they are indicated as country, you see the option to use the map to represent that. And then you can have something like this. So it will show you the different countries, and then there will be a legend indicating the different publications from those countries based on this particular data you have extracted from the software. So with this, it's easier for you to see, oh, okay, this particular country has this number of publications. You can see this is China. China has 13 documents from this particular research domain that we have downloaded from Scopus. India also have 13 documents. So it will give you all this necessary information, and you can use the color code to identify which country is being indicated or is being specified in that particular output. So based on this, you now have information about the first part of your objective one, which is to see the top countries publishing about that particular smart city development within the last 10 years. Then you go back. Remember, I said we also do for the authors. So you follow the same procedure that you have followed up until this point. Citation, then instead of countries this time around, we click on authors, which is what we have. And once you click on that, it brings up this screen also. Same approach, you select the minimum number of authors and then the minimum number of citations per author. And it will tell you also, out of the 264 authors downloaded in that particular bibliographic data, 27 of them meet this particular threshold. You can always adjust this around, as I've mentioned earlier, and make a justification, maybe because it's a particular field that you feel there are a lot of authors publishing in that area. So you want minimum of 2 documents per author, and then each of the documents must have at least 10 citations. You make that settings here, and then you click on next, which then gives you a table showing the different authors also. So having seen that, you follow the same approach. You export this data by right-clicking, click on export data, and then you go to Excel again, arrange them accordingly, or you can proceed to even creating a map with them. So the moment you click finish here, it will then create a map showing you the interlinks between each of these authors. If they have collaborated with one or two whatsoever, it will give you that particular information in the map, and you can export it to your work. So then that takes us to objective 2, which says to identify the most cited published works and sources. So we're looking at the cited works first, then we also look at the sources those cited works are coming from on smart city development. So same approach, you click on create, click on create a map whatsoever using that particular database. Then the next option from citations, you click on documents. Now, what we want to do is we want to see the number of publications in terms of the number of citations from the documents first before we do the one for the sources. So for the document, you select document and you click on next. Then you also set the minimum number of citations you want per document. It's at your discretion, but you must provide a justification for that particular number you are setting. And then it will show you an information of the 83 documents you have in this download. 11 of them meet the threshold. Based on that, you click on next, and then it will show you these authors. So these are the documents based on what you have downloaded and based on the number of citations that you set previously here. So using this also, you right click on the information, copy, export it to your notepad, and then you can go to Excel to arrange them accordingly. If you want to arrange them based on the number of citations to then know, okay, this is the author with the highest number of citations in this particular field. Then the next part is to see the sources also. Remember, from this step, you click on sources in this case, and then set the minimum number of documents you want from a particular source. So if you set this to 1 and then say the number of citations you want from that source, it will give you an option here also to show the minimum number of documents that meet that particular threshold. You can always adjust them around and make a justification for whatever you are adopting. And once you click on next, it will show you the list. So these are the different journals or conferences that are making publication on smart city development. And you can see the number of documents from that individual outlet or source, as well as the citations from those particular outlets. So you can see here, this conference has the highest number of documents, but you only have 18 citations from the 13 documents that has been published in that particular conference. Unlike computer networks, which has only one document published in that journal, and then it has 272 citations already. So that tells you that there might be more visibility of this particular journal, or the impact factor of this particular computer networks journal is very high, such that people cite the content you publish in that particular journal. So if you want to see the impact of your publication, you might want to consider putting your publication in that field in this particular journal. Although, if your work is just about meeting other people to see what they are doing in that field, then you can prioritize submitting your paper to this conference. Maybe they're having a yearly edition. So you look at their next year edition and plan to submit your paper to that conference so that you can meet people who are doing research in that area, share ideas, but you stand the risk of your work not getting noticed in the body of knowledge to get cited or get the impact you intend to achieve from that particular publication. So it's at your discretion, depending on what you intend to focus on. So same approach, you right click on this, export them to Excel, and then arrange them, format them accordingly, how you want it to be in the content of your work. Then also we move on to the next objective, which is to map out research focus in smart city. We want to see what are people doing in this particular field over the last 10 years. Same approach. So in this case, we are no longer on citations. We are looking at the co-occurrence of the keywords. What are the different approaches people are looking at in terms of the keywords of their study? So once you select all keywords, then you click on next, and then you select the minimum number of occurrence of a particular keyword. So it's at your discretion. Again, you can select 5. It will show you the number of keywords that meet that particular threshold, then you can also see the total number of keywords that you have based on the bibliographic data you downloaded from that particular database. Then you click on next, which then gives you a list. So you can see now each of those keywords will have the number of times they are occurring, and it will also show you the links that exist between them. So smart city, obviously, because the research is on smart city development, smart city becomes the keyword that occurred most 60 times, and it has a total link strength of 177, which means it's interlinked with mostly all other keywords you have for that particular study. So based on what you have here, you can also export this to your key notepad and then be able to arrange them accordingly on Excel if you want to present it in a tabular format. Also, you then click on next to create a map for it. So you then have this map showing you the links. So smart city being the major one, you can see it has the bigger node here in the center, and it's then linked to the different clusters across this particular keyword map. So here, if you click on this button here, the item button, you then see the various keywords that emerged from this particular bibliographic data. So it says we have 35 items and 6 clusters. And each of the clusters, you can see the keywords that makes up them, that particular cluster. And also you can see how each of the clusters are denoted by different colors so that it makes it easier for you to identify them from this particular chart. So here it's easy for you to identify, and you can see there are links also. Some are bigger while some are smaller. The links shows the strength between each of those keywords. So the bigger the link, remember, the bigger the strength of that particular keyword, which means they have co-occurred on more publications within that period of time that you're looking at. You can always adjust your visualization based on the settings on this side to increase the nodes or to decrease, change the approach, or maybe use frames instead of circles for the nodes. You can always play around with the settings. And also, if you click on the file menu here, you are then able to export this particular picture or this particular chart as a JPG file or PNG file. Then you click on the screenshot button to take it to the document where you intend to use that particular map. So this is more or less like what you get if you use that screenshot button. You click on file, click on screenshot, and then select maybe JPG or PNG file, and then it gives you the network visualization to see what links exist between the different keywords. So you can see smart city is one area. You have smart cities, Internet of Things. You have urban development here, utilization, artificial intelligence, different nodes with different themes that could influence the different approaches that the research are focusing on. So for instance, if you look at the green area now, the biggest node here looks like big data. So it could be that this particular node focuses on big data in relation to smart city development. How is big data influencing smart city development? That could be how you then name that particular cluster. You just have to use, remember I said for you to be able to make an interpretation of the data, you must be very critical. So you look at what links them up, what connects them, and then you are able to make your discussion based on that. Then the last objective we set is to identify the research trends in smart city development, still using that particular chart. Remember, what we have here is the network visualization. You have this option of overlay and the density also. So to identify the trends, you then click the overlay visualization. So this will now give you the trend over a period of time. So it will show you the timeline and show you where those publications using the color code you have here. So in 2015, the color areas where you have pink, purple rather, shows what people were doing at that period of time in relation to smart city. But when you come to 2018, for instance, it's now taking you to the yellow part to say currently this is what people are doing in terms of smart city. They are now looking at artificial intelligence, big data, vehicles, and the like. So that gives you an insight into what the current trends are in line with smart city development. That is the broad research focus. So that becomes what you then export using the same approach. You click on file, click on screenshot, and then you export this as a PNG or a JPG file to give you the chart that you use as the focus of publications within that particular research area. So having done all the 4 research objectives now, we can then combine all of this information and compile a research paper. Remember, the purpose of doing your bibliometric review is to be able to do a research, for you to have a research out of what you have carried out in terms of this particular analysis. So your research paper could be structured in this particular outline. It's not rigid, it's not compulsory you follow this, but it could be structured in this particular order where you have the title, the abstract, the introduction, research methods. So if you're combining it with the systematic review approach, before your research method, you can actually have some discussion, say for instance, on smart city development. So you have a detailed discussion before going to the research method. But since if you're going to limit it to a bibliometric review only, you might not necessarily have a literature review discussion separately. You just move to the research methodology you've adopted, state in details the different databases that were available, the one you considered, and justify why you adopted that particular database. Then you talk about the strings of keywords that you've adopted in searching out the documents from that database. What was the initial number of documents you found? How did you refine it? What were the criteria you set for refining? You do all of that, and then you start with the findings to discuss the publication per year, publication per country, publication per source, the most published or cited authors. You go on and on, most cited documents, area of focus of the past studies, trends in the publications, and now what are the possible areas for future studies that publications have not looked at over the last 10 years. Then based on that, you have the implication of finding sections where you then bring all of this information together in line with what is existing in the body of knowledge, maybe from your systematic review, to say, this is where we are. What is obtainable going forward based on all of this information? So there has to be the implication of all the findings you have established, then the conclusion and the references. So tips for reporting: make sure you report based on each objective. It is very, very important because remember, you set the research objectives specifically for that particular study. Then also, in terms of doing your discussion, it is better to open the CSV file you have downloaded from any of the database that you're adopting to get more information on each of the most cited documents. You can even read the abstract in full, go look for the actual documents to read the content based on the analysis you have carried out. So now from your analysis, you see the most cited article. You can then go online to download that article to read in details what's the content, what's the author saying, and then make some informed decision that will influence your research. So that way, you are not just downloading any file, you are using the most cited file in that particular field. So you can say your research can then lead you based on that to download the 10 most cited documents to use as a basis for understanding that particular research area. It makes it easier for you to have better knowledge in that particular field because you're focusing on the most cited documents in that particular field of study. Then also carefully evaluate the clusters of keywords and give reasonable and relevant names to each cluster. Don't just thumbs up and then say, this is the name I'm giving to this particular cluster. It has to be something that connects the various keywords within that particular cluster. So you need to be very, very meticulous in doing that. Then emphasis on the relation of the clusters to your work. You don't just report the clusters, you must be able to link it to what the actual study is all about. So you can highlight how these existing works relates to your own research or how they differ. One mistake most people do in article writing is they tend to look for only the links that relate to their own study to say, no, this study supports my own study. This study is in line with my own study, this and that. But there's nothing bad in it if the opinion from that particular study differs from what your own study is all about currently. So remember, it's all about making contribution to the body of knowledge. So there could be some factors that is leading that particular research to be different from what your findings in your own research is now. So don't be shy to report those aspects also. Do not limit your discussion to those that relate to your studies only. Then lastly, be very, very creative. Look for different approaches to make your report findings appealing to the readers. Be able to create discussions that are intriguing so that readers of that particular article will understand and find what your study is all about interesting to read. So remember, just as you have it in the systematic literature review where you have the Prisma chart indicating how you have conducted that particular review, you also need to have something like that for your bibliometric to give the readers an understanding of the different processes that you encountered in doing your bibliometric review. So it's very, very important. This is what gives a breakdown of how you've achieved the study. So then you can always represent your findings in different types of charts. It could be tables, just be creative as I've mentioned. You can have your map charts, you can have tables to show the different authors, their affiliations, the number of publications from that particular author, and then the number of citations they have. You can have network diagrams also showing the co-authorship based on these different authors from different institutions or countries. You can have the area of focus of each of these authors. What was the author's name, the title of their publication, the source where you downloaded it from, the method adopted for the study, the focus, and all of that. So you can have all of this information just to enrich the article you are writing. Then you can have frameworks developed from those clusters. So you can present the clusters as this, then you can also generate conceptual or theoretical frameworks based on what you have in this particular cluster. Remember, you have a particular name that you are adopting for that particular cluster, which can then assist you in generating models, frameworks, and the likes for that particular research you have conducted. And then it makes it easier. It becomes something creative for readers that are looking at that particular research to understand what your study is all about at the end of the day. So in conclusion, bibliometric review is becoming popular in all fields of research. It's no longer limited to the medical field. It's no longer limited to the engineering field. It's something that is adopted in all fields of research. So do not be shy to say you want to conduct a bibliometric review. It's not specific to a particular field. As long as there are publications that has been done in your field of study, you can always adopt bibliometric review to understand the trends, the citation metrics, and all the necessary information in that particular field. Then also it's a quantitative study of various aspects of literature on a particular topic. So it gives you that quantitative information you can incorporate into your review. Instead of just having systematic discussion and discussion and discussion, you can also have charts, maps, tables, and the likes, quantitative in nature, that you can incorporate into your literature review. Then also it is used to gain insight into the dynamics of growth of knowledge in a particular area under consideration. So that helps your research to have an understanding of where research started from in that particular domain within a period of time, where research is currently in that particular domain, and what are the areas people have considered, what makes it different from what you are doing currently, because that identifies the gap that your own research is filling in the body of knowledge. And lastly, the adoption of bibliometric techniques in various disciplines stimulates the stunning growth of literature that we have currently on bibliometrics and the related areas. So you need to also make contribution to the body of knowledge in your own field. And that is why we encourage people to continue to do bibliometric review, because you help others to understand what is existing in that field and what are the areas people are focused on, what can still be done, or what is now obsolete in that particular field. So it's easier for someone to say, okay, this particular research I want to carry out has been something that was existing maybe 10 years back, but now people have moved on from that area and it's no longer relevant. So it gives the readers opportunity to identify areas to focus on and what to leave behind in carrying out their future research. So that brings us to the end of our presentation today. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Doc. Colleagues, can we give him a round of applause? Thank you so much, Doc. This was very insightful. I can see even the comments on the chat. Yeah. So I'm not sure, Doc, if you can see the comments on the chat, or must I read them out for you?
No, I can see them now.
You can see them. Yes. Okay. So I think the first question is asking, is this similar to the use of Covidence? I think they are asking more about the tool which you were using. They are asking if is it similar to Covidence.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the tool called Confidence, but yeah, if there's something like that and it does bibliometric review, then definitely it would be similar, because the approach for doing a bibliometric review is similar for all the various softwares, like the Vox Viewer, the Biblioshine, the site space that I had mentioned earlier. They all follow the same ideology. You get the same type of output from them also at the end of the day. So I think that would be my response to that particular question.
Okay, thanks, Doc. And then the second one, last week's question I could not ask. How do I pick items or data to analyze from the extracted articles during a systematic literature review?
Okay, for you to be able to pick items, you need to have an understanding of that particular domain first, because in reality, you want to be able to pick out themes. So that's why we call it content analysis. You want to read through the content of those research and be able to say, this particular person is talking about, say, for instance, the factors influencing outbreak of COVID-19. That is what this particular study is all about. And then this person has listed the different factors. So it's based on your understanding of that area that you are able to do the content analysis and be able to pick out the different themes obtainable from that particular research. However, if you're doing a bibliometric review on the other hand, the software would help you identify the themes based on the keywords that are relevant from the title of the article, from the abstract of the article, and also from the keywords of that particular article. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Moving on to the next one. It's asking, is it possible to conduct a literature review using data extracted from multiple databases? If so, is it possible to combine them into a single one? Thanks.
Okay, it's difficult to combine them into one single file and then use for bibliometric review, except you want to critically sit down and identify the duplications and also arrange them accordingly. So, say for instance, if you download your file from Scopus, the way Scopus will do the headings for each of the columns on your CSV file will be different from how Web of Science would label each of the headings. So what you would then need to do is sit down carefully with the two downloaded files and align them to one of them. You can either take the content from the CSV file from Web of Science and start taking the content, the author's name, you put it on the specific author's name column for the Scopus file. The affiliation, you take it under the affiliation column for the Scopus file and do all of that for all the necessary output that you have exported from that database. Then you also need to now check which of these publications are duplicated, because remember, there are some journal outlets that are indexed on both Scopus and Web of Science. So you need to make sure you exclude all of those duplications and format the documents appropriately before you can say you adopt all of them into one single file and then take it to the software. So that's just the major work that you need to do. But if you're going to just download them and copy them into one single document to run on the software would continue to tell you there's an error online, something like that. So that's just the challenge about it. You need to be able to refine and format, clean the documents properly to combine them into one single document. I hope that answers the question also.
Yes, I hope so, Doc. Thank you so much for that response. But others, okay, the next comment, this is loaded, brilliant, explicit. It's about the compliments, Doc. This is knowledge empowering indeed. Thank you, Doc. Okay, then the last one. I thought generating theme during systematic literature review is if you want to do meta synthesis. What about if you want to do meta analysis? Kindly clarify, Prof.
I'm
I'm
not
not sure.
sure I get
I'm not sure.
that
I'm not sure
question.
if you are getting that one.
Oh, yes. I think is the person online. Maybe we can unmute and.
Okay. We please, Kolahole, is it possible to unmute and just try to briefly explain the question, and then we can take only one as Yanda Mavumengwana, and then we would ask our senior director to do the vote of thanks. And also, okay, yes. Can you go ahead, Kolahole? Okay, it seems like he's muted. Please go ahead, Zianda, with your question.
Thank you, Mr. Mtanyane. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
you are audible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Prof. I attended the previous session you did on systematic review a few weeks back, and then I asked a question. I think the feedback from my supervisor on my write-up was how dense and too much the information was, and they had suggested trying to visualize it, trying to almost summarize it in a snapshot that can be on one page in graphics, then cut down a bit on the narrative explanation on the studies. And then you recommended that to deal with that problem, maybe let me attend this session as well. It helped a great deal. It was very thorough. I'm properly blown away. I don't know what world I've been living in. My question then, Prof, because my systematic review is already done and written up, I wanted to know, is it possible to use elements of a bibliometric study without declaring it as almost as a full-on methodology that you used, because now I'm doing it in hindsight, of an already completed review, but I'm very much interested in the maps and the visuals that I'm able to extract from it. So I don't mind doing the double exercise of doing a bibliometric review, but I don't necessarily know if I want to rewrite it up as a bibliometric paper. I think I want to keep my systematic review a systematic review, but there's so much from what you presented that I want to learn, but I don't know if that is possible, if you can borrow elements and take some of them to embed in a review, or would you have to say it was a systematic review and a bibliometric review, or a systematic review and a meta-analysis, or whatever we are going to call it? I don't know if my question is clear, Prof. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for the question. I think at the end of the day, it will have to be your decision. Also, to an extent, the outlet you intend to publish your paper at. So, some outlets would rather not publish a systematic review because usually what people want to see when they are reading, they want to see some graphics, they want to understand using tables and the likes. So it's easy for them to then say, we prefer a bibliometric review. But some outlets will still prefer you to do a systematic review. So, like I mentioned, it's now at your discretion. If you want your paper to be systematic and you have an outlet that would accept your bibliometric review, you can proceed with that approach. For me, I would suggest you can leave your systematic, but you can bring in an element of bibliometric into it. It could just be just to look at the trends of publications within that particular topic area you're looking at. What are people saying? What are the areas they are looking at? And then that informs the maybe the concluding parts of your research, just to ground the reason why you're conducting that particular research, just to add meaning to it. So for me, that would be my suggestion specifically, but sincerely, there's nothing stopping you from combining your systematic with bibliometric. There's also nothing stopping you from just having the systematic separately and then maybe do a separate publication for the bibliometric review aspect. Yeah. So I hope that clarifies your question.
It does a bit, Prof, but I think my main question is, if I went ahead and did a bibliometric on the side, and then I decide to take the snapshot in the end, which is a map, and then attach it to my review, I think that's what I'm asking. Would I be able to do that? That I just took the visuals. I already have a target journal and they do accept systematic review. So that was an important thing to look for in the target journal. And I'm writing up in specs of that journal in terms of page numbers and so on. They just guided in terms of your page numbers being inclusive of your references and figures. And then they didn't unpack what those figures should be. It seemed to be at your discretion what figures or tables you use. So I'm tempted to do a bibliometric for myself to also quality assure the themes I drew up, if indeed a quantitative analysis would look like that. But all I really want is to, in the end, borrow those visuals and go put them in my systematic review. And I wanted to know if that's a thing that I can do.
Yes, definitely you can do that. You can follow that route. You just also, I don't know if in your current structure of the manuscript, if you have a section that talks about the methodology you're adopting for conducting the systematic review. So if you have something like that, then you just need to adjust it around to also indicate that you are including a bibliometric and then have a discussion about the charts that you are incorporating at the end of the systematic review. So it's not out of position to do something like that.
Thank you, Prof. That makes sense to me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you so much, Doc. We can just give ourselves a round of applause because we have been an engaging audience. At this point of time, let me hand over to our senior director, Dr. Tim Abunda, just to do a vote of thanks. Over to you, Doc. Doc, can you please unmute? Okay, if Doc is not around, Prof. Okuntona, are you still around? Please, if you are still around, can you please kindly unmute and just do the vote of thanks? Prof. Okuntona.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lungile, for moderating the session. And a big thanks to everyone for joining this afternoon. I believe that we've learned something, and we can all take this back and incorporate into our different studies so that hopefully by the end of next year, the research output of the institution will have doubled at that point. So, thank you so much, Mr. Lungile, and everyone from your directorate for helping us with this. We hope you'll be ready to help us going forward as well. But majorly, thanks so much, Dr. Akinradewo, for this very wonderful session. Thanks for answering the call at short notice, and thanks for this very comprehensive and detailed presentation. We hope also that when we call on you next time, you'll be ready to avail yourself and also to assist us when the need arises. Thank you so much. And also thanks to your affiliation, which is the University of the Free State. Thank you so much. And colleagues, thanks so much for sacrificing this time. I'm so surprised that we could even have so much attendance, considering that it's not, it's past lunch hour. But thanks so much. We hope to continue on this trajectory and to identify the right resource persons from wherever they are, and also the topic or the theme in vogue, or on the lips of researchers, so that we can all learn from this session. So thank you so much, everyone. And also, I could see some of our top senior colleagues, Prof. Ikuda, I say thanks so much. Also, I could see Mr. Pai. I'm so surprised. But thanks so much for joining in, and other colleagues that I could not